Reading from Dreams, Evolution, and Value Fulfillment by Jane Roberts, a Seth book, Volume 2. Okay, so going into Chapter 11, the magical approach and the relationships between quote-unquote conservation and spontaneous developments. Session 936, November 17th, 1981. Okay, so Seth states, in a fashion, dreams allow for a curious mixture of learning processes, while at the same time serving to introduce surprising developments. Which we have a surprising development right now. Oh my goodness, Mabel. Honey, go lay down. Go lay down, honey. I gotta read. Off you go. Okay. Mabel wants to listen. Don't mind her noises. Sorry, I just had to insert that because that just went so well with what I was just saying. Okay, even though we're not in a dream, but technically we are. So anyways, back to dictation. That is, dreams promote conservation of knowledge. They are an aid in the development of skills. They conserve available information by weaving it through the other structures of your experience. At the same time, dreams have their startling qualities, promoting the insertion of unexpected developments, in which case they appear to deal with the breaking down of conserving principles. In this fashion, they also mirror your more exterior behavior, conserving what you know already, and yet introducing new patterns, new spontaneous orders that would sometimes seem to run against conservative issues. They reinforce the past, for example, when you dream of past situations. They also seem to undermine the integrity of the past by showing it to you in an unfamiliar light, mixing it with present and future tints. Many people might wish that I would add many more methods to help you study dreams and their nature. In such a manner, also dreams suggest nature's spontaneous order throughout the centuries and allows you to look at the species in a truer light. Your lives, for that matter, are dependent upon the curious relationships that are involved. You would not get by for one day if the conserving principle and the unexpected did not exist exactly as they do. There is so much you must learn and remember in life, and so much you must spontaneously forget, otherwise action itself would be relatively meaningless. You perform far more actions in a day than you recall. You do not know how many times you lift your arms, speak a sentence, think a thought. With the kind of consciousness you possess, an over-reliance upon conserving principles could then end up in a reduction of life's processes. In private living and in so-called evolutionary terms, however, life necessitates the intrusion of surprising events, unforeseen actions, leaps of insight or behavior that could not come alone from any accumulation of knowledge or simple conservation of energy, but seem to suggest entirely different new developments. Dreams often serve as the frameworks in which sudden, remarkable insights appear that later enable a man or a woman to envision the world in a way that was not earlier predictable. The world's activities always include the insertion of surprising events. This is true at all levels of nature, from microscopic to macroscopic. As I've said before, all systems are open. The theories of both evolutionists and creationists strongly suggest and reinforce beliefs in the conservative nature of time and in a universe that begins in such and such a fashion, continuing on to such and such an end. But there are horizontal events that appear in the true activity of nature, and there are horizontal entry points and exit points in all experience. These allow for the insertion of unofficial new energy, the introduction of surprising events. And again, it is very difficult to explain such activities. They can affect and do affect the rise and fall of civilizations. You are used to reading nature in a particular manner, however, and to experiencing events at surface levels. You are naturally equipped to appreciate a far richer blend, and I have often said, you are yourselves possessed of a need to explore the subjective ramifications of your existence. As, quote, the times change, end quote, you tire of the old ways. Even your dreams begin to reach out into new avenues. The relationships between nature's natural conservative behavior and nature's need for innovation are stretched. More and more remarkable events begin to occur, both in private and mass experience, in physical and mental behavior, in the events, say, of both stars and man. People want then to throw aside old structures of belief. They yearn without recognizing it for the remembered knowledge of early childhood, when it seems that they experienced for a time a dimension of experience in which the unexpected was taken for granted, when, quote, magical events, end quote, occurred quite naturally. They begin to look at the structure of their lives in a different fashion that attempts to evoke from nature and from their own natures some graceful effortlessness, some freedom nearly forgotten. They begin to turn toward a more natural and a more magical approach to their own lives. At such times, the conserving elements in nature and in society itself do not seem as strong as they did before. Surprising events that were earlier covered up or ignored seem to appear with greater frequency, and everywhere a new sense of quickness and acceleration gradually alters the expectations of people in regard to the events of their own lives and to the behavior they expect from others. You are in such times now. Old, honored explanations suddenly appear withered. Unpredictable, remarkable events seem more possible. The kind of work done in dreams to some extent is changed. They become more active, more intrusive. Predictable behavior, even of the natural elements, is harder to take for granted. Man begins to sense more and more at such times the vaster dimensions of behavior upon which that appearance of conservation resides. There are considerable changes that occur under such conditions in man's subjective experience. Man's feelings about himself change too, but little by little his trust in unpredictability grows. He is more willing to assign himself to it. The species begins its own kind of psychic migration. It begins to sense within itself further frontiers and the possibilities for action. It begins to yearn for the exploration of mental lands, and it sends portions of itself out as couriers. Now, Rupert is that kind of courier. There are many in all areas of life, and this involves not only an excitement on the part of your own species, but the same kind of curiosity and excitement on the part of other species as well. Again, most difficult to explain, but those connections that exist between all species and the environment are themselves affected. The horizontal communications stretch and expand to allow for later developments in terms of probabilities, for consciousness always knows itself in more than one context, and it is possible for nature to experience itself in ways that would seem to be most improbable when the properties of conservation and learning are at their strongest spring. So that was the end of that session, but I'm going to read another. However, I want to insert session note number 10 and just this little part where Seth tells Rupert, quote, "A belief in a God who provides, by whatever name, is indeed a psychological requirement for the good health of the body and mind." Rupert did not want to face such issues. He felt that they opened the door to all of organized religion's psychological quicksand of emotionalism. The sinful self material is doing its work, opening the necessary doorways of desire and intent. When Rupert has typed those small later poems, the path will seem much clearer to him. The innocent self is being uncovered. Rupert is dealing with quite profound material involving the self's relationship with its source. This material being worked out in your current situations. The solutions will automatically lead him not only to a solution in practical terms, but toward the areas of development that he has been seeking, while being afraid of them at the same time. End quote by Seth to Jane. And going into session 937, November 19th, 1981. Before I actually go into this, I want you guys to know that in the notes, Jane is getting all kinds of new mobility at this time right now, right then. So she's able to, her body is like responding in strange ways, doing things that she couldn't do before, very spontaneously. And so she is doing her twice weekly sessions again, and this book is getting very close to being to the end. I should add that one of the reasons for Jane's health improvements was she had visitors, her old classmates from her ESP classes that she would do. And it brightened her mood, it brightened her spirits. And of course she's reading The Magical Approach and writing about it, making a book, while this book is being dictated, or in between book dictation, really. So that's part of what they're saying in the notes. But I'm just going to go now to the next session. Seth states, "The same curious mixture of non-predictable and predictable activity operates in genetic patterning, in which the genetic systems are largely set up to achieve the retention of specific characteristics, and yet can also demonstrate behavior that seems to be genetically unfaithful, distorted, or to introduce alterations that might appear to be traversities upon genetic integrity. Those odd genetic happenings, however, as I have tried to explain, often provide a resiliency and a widening of probabilities that are most necessary for overall genetic balance. Dream actions can indeed, and often do, affect genetic alterations, acting as triggers for altered cellular action. There is a give and take between the seemingly separate mental and physical aspects of your lives at every level of experience and at every level within nature's seeming boundaries. There are decisions in which each individual plays a part that are made in fields of activity that you usually do not even realize exist. The people of a nation can, at any given moment, decide to activate or experience a particular event almost entirely in the physical realm, or to separate its elements in such a way that half of it is experienced physically and the other half in dream reality. Transformations of energy occur, of course, constantly, so that, say, a probable physical storm can instead appear as an economic one. It can appear as an emotional storm on the part of large numbers of people. It can instead appear as a series, say, of frightening dreams. At each point of its existence, such an event can weave in and out of such manifestations, largely dissipating itself. An adverse physical situation such as an illness may turn into, quote, a frightening dream, end quote. Yet in all such cases, the necessary standards of self-integrity are maintained. The same alterations apply, of course, for fortunate events, which may be experienced through full physical expression, or through a series of manifestations that might also involve social or economic happenings, or the occurrence of splendid weather conditions, the insertion of excellent, almost perfect summer-like days, or whatever. The predictable and non-predictable serve then to form the boundaries of physical experience. The more open you are to such ideas, the greater the flow of your experience can be. As Rupert himself often mentioned in his own book, The God of Jane, you should never accept as fact a theory that contradicts your own experience. Man's experience includes, for example, all kinds of behavior for which science has no answers. That is all well and good. Science cannot be blamed for saying that its methods are not conducive to the study of this or that area of experience. But science should at least be rapped on the knuckles smartly if it automatically rejects such behavior as valid, legitimate, or real, or when it attempts to place such events outside of the realm of actuality. Science can justly be reprimanded when it tries to pretend that man's experience is limited to those events that science can explain. It is instead, of course, quite possible that your predictable world exists not in spite of, but because of those surprising, unpredictable, unofficial occurrences. There is a kind of larger spontaneous order of which the seemingly unpredictable elements of your world provide their own clues. By taking notice of seemingly unpredictable events, by changing your focus, you can indeed begin to sense the larger patterns of such a reality, and that reality leaves many traces in your own experience. It everywhere provides hints and clues as to its own actuality, and your own participation in varying fields of expression that have not been given any official recognition. Within the patterns of human experience, then, lies evidence of man's greater ability. He rubs shoulders with his own deeper understanding whenever he remembers, say, a precognitive dream, and out of body whenever he feels the intrusion or infusion of knowledge into his mind from other than physical sources. Such a creature could not be the puppet of a genetic engineering accidentally manufactured in a universe that was itself meaningless. If man paid more attention to his own subjective behavior, to those feelings of identification with nature that persistently arise, then half of the dictates of both the evolutionists and the creationists would automatically fall away, for they would appear nonsensical. It is not a matter of outlining a whole new series of methods that will allow you to increase your psychic abilities, or to remember your dreams, or to perform out-of-body gymnastics. It is rather a question or a matter of completely altering your approach to life, so that you no longer block out such natural, spontaneous activity. So that is the end of dictation. Anyone who would like to stick around and listen to a poem that Jane wrote in August 26, 1981, about her condition and what she was seeing and feeling. Okay, and so this is a private experience, really, in her poem. So Rob didn't even know about this. He never saw it until much, much later, and he says that when he read it, it brought him to tears. He wished he had known how close she felt to death and the acceptance of it. The poem doesn't have a title, and so I'm just going to start reading it from the top, obviously. So this is how the poem starts. She says, "Something in me ebbs and tides, as if I let myself for a while be washed away out to sea while leaving some spidery shell upon the shore, dry and shriveled, scarce alive, yet with fierce mouth and eyes half alive. But that half is passionate and filled with life's yearning. The other part, dispassionate, flows together with the waves, past world and rock dispersed as mist, beyond impediments, uncaring, while my heart in the fragile shell calls out, quote, 'Come back, dear counterpart. I am exhausted, near dying, a partially empty shell, paper thin, with all my life alive and flaming, only in my head, but nearly unstirring. How can you leave me in such a state, vulnerable and exposed?'" End quote. Sometimes there is no reply at all, as if my voice itself turns into mist or is lost in the waves pounding, until it seems I am indeed abandoned, separated from some forgotten self who has gone elsewhere without me, so that the gulf between us is so distant that messages sent back and forth now take so long to reach me that only future generations of myself would be here to catch their meaning. Then I hear, as I think I did this morning, some response that says, quote, "Who do you think sent me on such a journey if not yourself?" who said, Don't worry about me, I'll make out, but hurry. Go while the tide is full and take advantage of its motion, to which I'll add, all of mine I can afford to lend. Let yourself be carried where the flesh in its sweet cowardice would be afraid to follow. And so I did." End quote. I scarcely remember but recognize the voice and feel some distant tide of motion turning back, some mythical self carrying a million messages beyond the known and exotic treasures back to where I am waiting. And a rush of motion shifts my dry wrists minute yet violent, so that I startle, shudder, who have been motionless so long. The spidery shell that holds my heart is lifted at one edge as if by a sudden wind, and coiled, dried tendrils of nerves and muscles unwind themselves. My color changes. My white parchment skin turns coral. Minute wrinkles disappearing. My shape begins to fill out again, and I sense a strange self returning, more swiftly now, mind stroking the giant waves of the unknown mental sea. Little by little, my strength arouses. My muscles unravel, which have been folded tight, saved for future use. And I sit up now, running brittle fingers through my sun-dried hair. I say, quote, "We went too far, my friend. From now on, we'll have to go together. Just out as far as I can walk or swim, or I'll go mind traveling with you. But I won't stay home alone again. Appliances turned down halfway waiting." End quote. Quote, "Nor will you have to." End quote. The voice is clearer now, until it sounds from my own mouth, vibrant, loud, no longer distant. We chatter half the night together while I shake the webs of remoteness from fingers and toes. My shell grew soft as a web, then it fell apart and was whisked off, sighing in the morning wind. All around us the beach gathers the precious images that leap up suddenly in the dark, coming in with the tides that unites the tides of the hearts. My counterpart says, quote, "Those treasures are marked with your name and will be arriving each day for a while. Marvelous surprises from the most mysterious of places. But I've grown wiser too. How good to find you waiting for me here. No journey is worth disturbing our harmony, the self's unity, and to the undivided self all journeys are possible." End quote. Quote, "Right now I just want to stand up whole and walk across the beach." End quote, I said. And arm in arm we did, smiling our double single smile. So, end of dictation for today. But I want you guys to know that the next video will likely be the last one for this chapter. So then we'll be going into the last chapter. Thank you for watching.